Genesis 18, an exegetical and biblical theological exploration. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode from Room Apologetics. Today, we're diving deep into Genesis chapter 18, a pivotal moment in the unfolding story of God's redemptive purposes. Introduction. Genesis 18 stands as a key theological junction in the organic, progressive unfolding of God's redemptive plan. After the cosmic rebellions in Eden, the transgression of the Watchers, and the disinheritance of the nations at Babel, Yahweh begins his great work of restoration. He calls Abraham to form a people who will mediate blessing to the entire world. Viewed through the lens of Walter C. Kaiser Jr.'s promise plan of God, this chapter is far more than an isolated story. It is a sophisticated narrative showing the Creator's relentless initiative to reclaim the disinherited nations and restore the cosmic temple. In the ancient Hebraic way of seeing the world, the text shows Yahweh bringing heavenly reality to earth in human form. He reaffirms the eschatological seed promise and invites Abraham into a prophetic royal priestly partnership. This chapter makes clear that God's covenantal election of Israel is deeply connected to ethical formation and the ultimate inclusion of the Gentiles, without spiritualizing away or displacing the concrete promises made to ethnic Israel. Exegesis of Genesis 18. Section A, the theophany at Mamre and the promise of the seed, verses 1 through 15. The chapter opens with Yahweh appearing to Abraham by the terebinths of Mamre. This encounter gives us a profound glimpse into the ancient supernatural worldview where the divine and earthly realms truly intersect. The narrative portrays God's intimate covenantal engagement with humanity. This stands in sharp contrast to Hellenistic philosophical systems that imagine a distant, detached, and impassible deity. Yahweh reaffirms that Sarah will bear a son. This highlights that the promise plan depends entirely on God's life-giving power that overcomes barrenness. The realization of the promised seed rests completely on divine grace, not on human effort or clever pragmatism. Section B, Covenantal Election and the Economics of the Kingdom, verses 16 through 21. As the divine visitors turn toward Sodom, Yahweh openly shares his intentions with Abraham, recognizing him as the foundational patriarch of the promise plan. Genesis 18 verse 18 emphasizes that Abraham will become a great nation, and that all the nations of the earth will be blessed in him. The Greek Septuagint translates this as panta ta ethni, all the nations, underscoring the universal cosmopolitan scope of the Abrahamic promise. Verse 19 explicitly links covenantal election to ethical formation. I have chosen him, that he may command his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing righteousness and justice. The fulfillment of the Abrahamic covenant depends on the faithful behavior and covenantal obedience of his descendants. Section C, Intercession and the Justice of Yahweh, verses 22 through 33. The powerful dialogue about the coming judgment on Sodom and Gomorrah reveals much about God's character. Abraham's bold questioning of Yahweh demonstrates a vibrant relational dynamic. He steps fully into his calling as the image of God, mediating between the Creator and a broken world. The negotiation over the righteous in Sodom showcases classic Hebraic block logic. It holds God's absolute justice and his profound mercy together in tension without contradiction. Yahweh is the active warrior king who must judge wickedness and rebellion, yet he remains intimately willing to show mercy for the sake of even a few righteous people. New Testament appropriations. Later, biblical writers connect these promises in Genesis 18 directly to their fulfillment in the Messiah and the inclusion of the Gentiles into the commonwealth of Israel. In Galatians chapter 3 verse 8, the Apostle Paul draws on Genesis 18 verse 18, along with Genesis 12 verse 3, to show that Scripture preached the gospel beforehand to Abraham. God's original intent was to justify the Gentiles by faith, laying a strong Old Testament foundation for Paul's understanding of salvation. In Romans chapter 4, verses 16 through 18, Paul sees Gentile participation in the New Covenant community as the direct fulfillment of those ancient promises about Abraham's seed. This ties into the new covenant hope fulfilled through the saving work of Messiah Jesus. And in Acts chapter 3, verses 25 and 26, the apostles identify Jesus as the ultimate realization of the Genesis 18 promise. Through Abraham's seed, God sent his servant first to Israel to turn them from their wickedness, thereby bringing blessing to all the nations. Theological synthesis. Genesis 18 serves as a central pillar in the organic architecture of biblical theology. Through the Promise Plan framework, we see that the election of Israel is not some tribal exception, but the very mechanism by which the Creator restores the fractured image of God across the globe. By calling for a covenantal fidelity expressed as doing righteousness and justice, and by promising worldwide blessing, Yahweh grounds salvation history in concrete, physical realities. These events point forward to their ultimate fulfillment in the Messiah. Through Christ, the disinherited nations are reclaimed and grafted into the nourishing root of Israel without canceling the distinct future-oriented promises to the Jewish people. Genesis 18, therefore, establishes a paradigm for a non-supercessionist, narrative-driven understanding of salvation that moves steadily toward the final fusion of heaven and earth in the New Jerusalem. That's our exploration of Genesis 18 today. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. How does this chapter shape your understanding of God's big story? If you found this helpful, please subscribe, like, and share. It really helps the channel grow and reach more people with solid biblical teaching. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep pressing into the Scriptures and the living God who meets us there.